Hey everybody, Jamie Pate here and welcome to this video. I'm excited to share this little mini, or at least one like it, with you all today. Okay, you can see here in my hot little hands on my workspace is a mini album. I mean, it's pretty small, right? I mean, we can just set it right here. It's just over 4 inches wide and it's just about 3¼ inches in its height right there, right? Okay, here's the deal. Here's the inspiration. Here's the thought behind the make. There is a brand new pattern paper pack. It's an A2 size. It's available exclusively at ScrapbookCom called Berry Sweet. And it is Berry Sweet. And I just might be running with that pun as we go. Okay, here's the thing. Like I said, it's A2. But when I saw it and I'm going through some of these patterns, I'm like, you know, I'd really like to make a mini album with this. And yeah, we could use these full sheets, but I just had something else in mind. But I wanted to stay with this size because these are about 4¼ 5½. It's an A2 size. It's a perfect card size, which we should be making some perfect cards with this too. And there's all kinds of lovely patterns going on here, and they're just speaking my language right now. They are just talking to me. You can see a couple of the other patterns here, and you're going to be seeing a lot more of this pattern paper going forward. Well, I made a sample here and I just kind of grabbed some P13 papers that I had, as well as some, Bow Bunny, that I had some of the beautiful things. And I just wanted to kind of figure out, okay, what's this going to look like? So you can see here I have a cover and I added a chipboard to it because I love having sturdy covers. But then the inside is all made up of pockets. These are all pockets that I made with that A2 paper. And there are 4 pockets in here. This one's attached to the very back. What do we need to do to make this happen today? Well, let me show you. That's why we're here, right? I want to show you the things. A couple of things that are going on with this. We already talked about the Berry Sweet, and I'm going to go ahead and grab as well. I need a piece of white cardstock, and I have some measurements written on there. I'm also utilized a corner rounder and a piece of chipboard. Of course, we already talked about the chipboard. And so I don't need a really big piece, and we'll talk about measurements in a moment. I'm going to use glue. I know I almost always use the double-sided adhesive roll for my mini albums, but as I was playing with this, I'm like, I liked the glue for some open time, and you'll see how that works too. Let me see what else I have here. In terms of embellishment, I have cut some let me see, what is this called? This is actually called layered roses. I have there's 7 pieces to this. There's some roses and some background pieces to the roses, and there's some leaves. And so I went ahead and cut those out. I also used some of the harvest cardstock. I have this ticket. This was actually from another, I'm grabbing my bowls here. This was actually from another stash of papers, and I just grabbed that out of there because I'm like, yeah, I'm probably going to use that. So to start, I already know, based on how I'm going to make a pocket, I'm going to kind of jump ahead a minute here with some measurements. I already know that my pockets, this direction, what did you do with the mini album already? You can see this direction, the mini album is just about 3¼ So I already know, because we are going to be crafting a hidden binding here, I want that binding to be about 3¼ inches wide. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this white cardstock to 3¼ inches wide. Actually, I'm taking that back. I think I want to go to 3⅛. That's what I actually want. 3⅛. 3⅛. I don't think that's how we say that. I think it's 3/8 and 3/8 wide. Now, something I'm learning when you're making this kind of a binding, and it's going to be an accordion binding, and you'll see that play out in a moment. I think what you want is you want as many pockets. I'm using 4 pockets, and for this to be 4 inches wide, because then what I'm going to come in and do is score at every ½ inch. And this will be making an accordion binding, but we're going to be hiding it. And I have to show you while we're talking about that for a minute. When I made this first one, no, I don't. I take it back. I have another sample here. When I made this one, I thought to myself, I made all kinds of discoveries when I was making this. But see here, this is our accordion binding. This is what I just cut right here. This one's white. This one has some color. I didn't like it showing. So that's when I went to work to try and figure out, okay, how can I actually hide that? And so that's what I'm going to share with you today, how we're going to hide this binding inside our pockets, basically. So making sure when you accordion fold this, just make these as straight as you can. Make sure you can get this folded along the score lines as best you can. And then when it's sitting up like this, we have, this is the back. This is going to actually be adhered to our back cover in a moment. And then I'm going to add a pocket here, or actually like this. I'm going to add a pocket onto here. I'm going to add a pocket onto here. I'm going to add a pocket onto here. Okay, so let's work on constructing the pockets. Okay, with the Berry Sweet paper, I will tell you I know already as I was looking at these and playing with these, and let me try and find all my patterns here. Okay, love this, and I thought this would be really pretty as part of its binding. So I'll set this aside because that's going to be my front cover. And I believe I decided for this to be my back inside cover. I'm going to set that aside. For the rest of these, I'm going to need 2 of each for this. And I decided I want this to be my front pocket. It's a cute little black dot. I thought that would look really cool against the stripe. You're not going to totally see it, but it'll connect and you're going to see what I mean. So here's like this green like hash mark and then a sort of buffalo check here in the black. And I'm just going to hang on to this in case I need this. And then the thing is I'm going to need 2 of each sheets. For my pocket, I am going to set this on my scoreboard so that the long side is up against my ruler. My first mark is going to be at 1/2 inch here at the bottom. Then I'm going to come into my 4.5 inch mark. I'm going to score at 4.5 inches. Then I'm going to turn it so my short end, doesn't matter which one, is against the ruler. I'm going to come in here at 1/2 inch. And I need 1/2 inch on this side. It's going to keep it super easy for all of us. I'm going to flip it over and do 1/2 inch here. Okay, it's going to be a little, well, I don't know. I think you can see that pretty good. What I like to do is cut off, this is my bottom corner. This is my other corner on the bottom. I just like to take out that extra paper there so it doesn't get completely bunged up. And then up here, hopefully you can see there's a rectangle here and a rectangle here that has been scored. I'm going to cut down and then move my scissors in there and cut this at an angle. I'm going to do the same thing with this side. It's just easier for me to flip it so I can cut over here on my right hand side because I'm right-handed. So we're going to just take that at an angle. So you're going to end up with that kind of a piece. And you know, I got to clean up as I go. I just can't have all these little papers just hanging out, right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and work on this piece by folding over all of the scored edges. And I'm going to start with the bottom 3. So you can kind of see we have the makings of a pocket. Now this is what a lot of people call this the lid. This is our cover. This is our flap. At this point is where I'm going to grab the corner rounder and I can get in here now. And I'm using, this is Dress My Craft, and there's 3 sizes in here. I'm using the middle size. So not too big, not too little. Just right. Okay. So then, of course, this is going to come down like this. I don't really need that to do that yet, but you get the idea here. I'm going to make sure this is straight. Okay, now, I already talked about this is going to be my first pocket. So what I'm going to do here, and you can see as well that my binding kind of comes in between there. That's perfect for me. I love how that worked out. Okay, so what I want to do then, grabbing my Smart Glue, I am going to add glue to the bottom flap to start. All I'm doing is the bottom flap. And then I'm going to tuck it into that valley. And my first crease, my first fold, if you will, is going to glue right on top of there. And I'm just going to give it a moment to make sure it is glued in place. And I can even, this was a trick I learned from the crafters on SBC Fest. taking a stamp block and setting it on there and letting that dry. Okay, I need now the back, if you will, of my pocket. So I know that I'm going to need 3/8 inch cut off, and I'm cutting off from my long end. And I won't be using this right now, but this will definitely come in handy later for embellishing. So don't throw away your straps. Don't throw away your scraps either. Now then, turn it and trim this at 3 7/8. So hopefully you have a trimmer that will do that for you. And so now this, I think I need to change my blade. It's being a little contrary for me. Okay, so now I'm going to come in here and you can see how this is going to fit over, not only to close up my pocket, but it's also going to cover up. This is going to be on the front cover, so don't let this first flap fool you. We need that to attach to the first cover. But now I'm covering up my binding. I love that. I loved when that worked out like that. So I wanted to share this with you. I got a little excited about it. There's so many ways to make mini albums, right? There's so many, and different sizes too. I mean, there's different sizes, there's different ways to make them. I just love when I kind of come across sort of a new, fresh little way of making something. I don't know. It's just, it's the creative in us, right? So this is where the glue came into good order for me, because I wanted to make sure that I lined up the closer of my pocket inside of my pocket. It's a little bit not quite, it's not as wide as the pocket itself. See how that works out there? And then I needed just a little bit of ability to kind of move it around if I needed to. So that's where the glue came in handy. Okay, so that's our first pocket. We're going to do that one more time. Then I'm going to kind of skip ahead to our covers. So just making the other pocket here using the same measurements of the 1/2 inch and the 4.5 inch. And then I love having those scores in place so that you know exactly where to trim. Just makes it super easy that way. And just repeating this, and this can be any size you want. So just remember that. These ideas are for launching to another idea. And so I have all my pockets now in place, just like I did the first time. And here I'm just sharing how I'm adding the very last pocket to the very last singular flap, because it's actually going to be my last page. And one of the things about doing the front pocket first and then the second and the third is line up those pockets so that they are just as neat as they can be behind one another. And so now just putting the topper on again, just like we saw before. So maybe this is just kind of a nice little refresher for you as to how we're going about putting our pocket in place. And this is just so much fun to do. And you can make this as big as you want, just depending on how large of a binding piece that you have. Now I'm eyeballing my back cover. I marked my chipboard, and just as a tip, and I've talked about this before, is to make several passes with your craft knife and chipboard. Don't try to cut it through the first time. Take your time, be patient. And I'll allude to this later on, but I really did wing it here. When I teach a class, I am very specific about the measurements for the covers, for the inside. When I'm doing the YouTube videos, I do sort of kind of just wing it. So just bear that in mind if ever you purchase one of my classes. There's a lot of specificity to each of those classes. Let's see. Let's go back and do this again. This is 3 1/4 by 4. 3 1/4 by 4 is what my front cover is going to be. And before I do that, I am going to go ahead and cover this. So glue is being grabbed. This is called kind of winging it as you go. I mean, making our cards and our mini albums and our tags, they're not a science. This does not fall in the science category of life. This falls in the creativity. So measurements sometimes aren't 100% exact. Sometimes we just trim it off. Sometimes we eyeball it. Sometimes we say, you know what? I don't really want it the size that Jamie shared. I want to do it this way. And that's where our individual creativity comes in. So I'm going to do the same thing here. going to add this cover to the front. I realized as I was putting this cover on the front that I hadn't adhered my inside front page, and so that flap there is exactly what that's for. It's for the inside cover. So I trimmed my paper down. I'm going to attach it to that flap, and then the chipboard cover will go right on top of that, again hiding our binding. Okay, we need one more scored piece. I told you before I liked this for part of my binding. My book is about 3 1/4, maybe a little bit more tall, so I only need this about that tall as well, because it's going to wrap around the outside border, binding rather, of my book. Then what I know I'm going to need, I want about 1/2 inch that covers this. So I'm kind of eyeballing this. This here happens to be 2.5 inches. I'm looking here at my 1 inch mark. I'm going to go 1 inch score and 1/2 inch score. Then when I fold this over, I want to make sure that I make note here that no glue will be going in here in the middle, right? Because this is going to cover this and it still needs to be able to open. If we add glue in the middle, it's going to be a problem for us. So we're adding glue here to our front flap of our binding cover, and I'm going to snuggle that right up there to the chipboard and glue that in place. I'm going to do the same thing to the last, to the last flap. Nothing in the middle, just right here. And same thing. And make sure the fold and the back part of your chipboard line up. And that's how you cover your binding. You can keep it exposed. I like to have it covered. One other thing I wanted to do is kind of be a little more interactive here with my front flap and bring it to the front. I'm going to move this out of the way. This is where these guys come in, where I had the roses and these other sprigs of leaves. And I want this to be, actually I'm going to put this here first. And again, for this particular mini album, I am just sharing the embellishments for the front page. If this was a class, I would go through each and every page, but those classes tend to be longer format than a YouTube situation. So I'm just doing my classic layers. I've added a sticker from Simple Stories. I shared that in my unboxing video. I wrapped this closed and I decided I'm going to do something a little different. This is an option if you do want to wrap yours closed. Watch how I decided to do mine though. So to finish this up, I actually used some foam tape to pop up my sticker, and it kind of covers up the glue and just sort of gives everything a foundation on that embellishment cluster. I'm going to use a paper clip or a book clip, if you will, to close it up. And that's a look at this cute A2 mini album. Yes, I'm calling my own project cute. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you will give me a thumbs up for this video and subscribe if you don't already. And I'll see you in the next video.